You're listening to the Seen and Solved podcast brought to you by Hubbard-Hall. Better results, less chemistry.
So welcome to this edition of Seen and Solved. I'm your host, Tim Pennington. And again, today I'm joined by Jeremy Morgan, a Product Manager of Biological Products at Hubbard-Hall. We've been talking about biological wastewater treatment systems in our first two episodes. And in this episode, Jeremy, I want to talk a little bit about, okay, they've got the system in their facility, and let's talk about training and operating the system. What all should you be taking into consideration when you're thinking about that? Obviously, I think you need to bring in a professional to kind of help.
Yeah, certainly. A professionally designed system is certainly going to pay dividends like we had discussed in the previous episode. But there is some specific training that goes along with running a biological wastewater system. It's certainly not necessarily a steep learning curve, but it's probably going to be a little bit foreign to most folks if they've never been exposed to a biological system before. So one of the things that I highly encourage anyone that is just starting this form of treatment is to attend some local training classes. Every state usually has one or two entities in the state that basically provide training for wastewater treatment systems. Most municipalities, well, I won't say most municipalities, but all municipalities, the operators are required to be licensed by their governing state, just like any other professional licensing commission or board is done, whether you're a doctor or a lawyer, or there is a professional licensing system, basically. And I really highly encourage operators to attend some of those training sessions to kind of get the basics down for how to operate and how to be more comfortable with those types of systems. So that's generally the first thing I would recommend. Now, it's certainly not a requirement, but those training sessions and classes will go a long, long way to understanding how these systems work.
I know a lot of wastewater operators that I've been talking to the past couple of months or so talk a lot about how they really reach out to their local governing agency and ask them, are there courses, are there classes, are there manuals, things like that. And a lot of them said they've been very surprised that there are, and they will, they may have to travel a little bit, an hour or so, but there's a lot of these courses which they swear by because they're very helpful. A lot of them are free. They can go and get the training off of it, right? So that's something I think that they would definitely want to do, is to contact their local, whoever they're working with in their local municipality, and let them know about the system they're thinking about and see what's available, correct?
Exactly. And most local municipalities, particularly if you operate a pre-treatment system that discharges to that municipality, they are generally going to be more than happy to direct you, where to go for additional education or help them out, directly. So, that's one of the things. Don't necessarily be afraid of your local governing body or municipality. They're there to help you out.
They are there to help. That's correct. Yeah, definitely. We talked about this earlier, or the earlier episode too, but I did want to ask, because we're talking about training, we're talking about operating. What is it when you're operating? It pretty much runs itself to a certain extent, but what metrics are you looking at when you're measuring how well your system's operating? What levels do you have to have? What kind of, give me that score of all the things that need to be paid attention to?
Yeah, certainly. Whether it's pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen, ORP, basic ammonia or phosphorus levels. All of those metrics are, they're fairly easy to measure. Most of them are done by a simple meter that's either in process or can be measured fairly quickly, with a sample pulled from the system. But there does have to be judgment calls made, based on what those levels are at. And that's where some of the training can really come in to speed that process up and lower that learning curve a little bit, to be able to make a better judgment call on what to do with those numbers. So in addition to that, I would like to make it clear that there are some rudimentary math skills that are definitely needed for some of the calculations to be made based off of those numbers. It's not rocket science, but it is going to be a little more difficult than your basic addition and subtraction. There's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to math with running a biological system, and that tends to be one of the most intimidating parts of operators going through their training. But again, it's not something to be afraid of. It's anybody can do it. It's a little extra work, little extra thought that goes into it. But I do want to encourage operators not to be intimidated by the math portion.
Right. Like I said, and the benefits are fantastic. I know that those that have used it. Are there certain times where there is the biological system will produce some excessive solids? If so, how are those handled by the individual shops then?
Mm-hmm. So if it's a conventional activated sludge system, basically where the biomass is suspended in a tank or a basin, those do tend to produce more solids just by the general nature of those systems. You're gonna have more solids generated as the system runs. Basically, the bacteria, as they break down the BOD and COD and nutrients in the system, they're basically turning that into new bacteria. So basically, they're reproducing. So BOD in, more bugs out is kind of how it works. So a portion of those solids and bacteria need to be removed, hopefully every day, in order to maintain a consistent concentration in the system. Those solids are generally allowed to settle and then removed through some kind of filtration device, similar to how solids that are generated by coagulation and flocculation process are already removed in the existing system. So a lot of plants that are retrofitting a biological system into an existing physical chemical removal system, they're probably already going to have that equipment in place. But they may need to upsize a bit, depending upon the amount of solids produced. Now, if they're using a fixed film system where the bacteria grows on a surface, those systems tend not to produce nearly as many solids. They're typically not quite as efficient from a removal standpoint, but they are a little more attractive to metal shops simply because of that lack of solids production. Basically, as the biofilm grows on the surface, eventually part of that film will basically slough off the surface, but that solids production is a fraction of what a conventional activated sludge system will produce.
Well, like I said, this sounds like a very a system that a lot of shops should explore, certainly, to see how it can help them. We talked about it in the first episode we did about how the regulations are getting tighter and tighter, and it's something that they should be made aware of. And like I said, I know best to get ahead of the curve. I know, like I said, you are an expert. You've been doing this for many years. I think one of their first calls should be to you there at Hubbard-Hall to get. I know you could probably give them some great insight on what they need to do and maybe even help them with their existing system. But certainly to reach out and start gathering information would be the best first step for them. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. And we're always happy to help. We're always happy to answer any questions that a shop may have. We're here for support. We want the shop to be able to meet whatever permit demands that are placed upon them, and we're happy to assist with that.
Good to hear. All right. Well, great. Jeremy, appreciate you joining me. And for this 3-part series, like I said, you can watch the first part, which was about basic an overview of the systems, biological systems. And the second part was about the equipment. And then today was about the training. So you can go back and watch those other ones. But Jeremy, again, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tim. It was really great to be here.
The Scene in South podcast is brought to you by Hubbard-Hall. For more podcasts, visit hubbardhall.com or wherever you get your podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, rate and review, and join us on social media. produced by Allcast.